All right, so this is part two of our Gigli podcast. We are having some internet issues with the first one, so we're doing a short second part here to kind of wrap up what we were talking about. So the first part, we got to do an overview of the movie and just hear what the movie was about and some things that just were not super great about it. So now we're diving back in to maybe some things and some ways that could have been a little bit better. So for me, I would have really loved to see more of just Brian and Ben Affleck's character Gigli, maybe doing more crime stuff, darker, be a little more darker, not have J Lo in it at all, and they would just go around and he would do his regular everyday stuff that he got to do, whatever other stuff that Lewis was going to have him do on a regular basis. And you see a relationship kind of bond between both of the guys, and they get to grow closer. And then there'd be some kind of climactic scene at the end, potentially one of them dying, even. I don't know what that'd be exactly, but just really focusing on their relationship and them growing closer as friends. And again, not really having J Lo in it at all. And I think that would have been just a better movie overall, and obviously totally different. But I think that would have been a lot better. So Tanner, what was maybe something for you specific that would have been a little bit better?
Well, actually, I agree with you, and I want to riff on your thing for just a minute. I think something that they really could do with that, because you see them get closer, you see Ben Affleck in the movie, they sort of develop the soft spot for Brian's character, but it doesn't necessarily come together in a way that makes that much sense. So I think with the way you pitched it, you can have him be like doing some of these crimes, and you can kind of see Brian's like very innocent reactions to it, and that can kind of be what starts to shift Ben Affleck's mind. And he's been doing this stuff for a long time, so he is desensitized to it. So seeing Brian's reaction maybe would spark something in him where he's thinking, oh, this stuff is kind of bad. And then part of what the climax could be, maybe Ben Affleck is like about to have to kill someone, do a hit or something, and Brian like really freaks out or something, and Ben decides, man, we gotta bail, we have to just go move on with our thing, I guess. Yeah, I think that could be a good more of making it a more crime movie instead of one of the things we talked about a lot in the first part, was just the tone is here and there. It seems like it's supposed to be a comedy sometimes, but it's not funny really. It seems like it's supposed to be a crime movie sometimes, but it's like very soft and they don't really do a whole lot. So my idea, I think my big main thing for how I might fix it is to sort of version 2 would be kind of the opposite of what you said. So leave J-Lo in, and I would sort of make it a very like bottle episode sort of romantic comedy. So he goes and gets Brian, brings him back to his apartment. He's doing that for a day or two. Then J-Lo shows up and sort of steps on his toes, and he starts to be like, oh man, Lewis doesn't trust me. You kind of see them start to interact. And one of the big flaws we talked about was, they take Brian out in public a bunch of times, even though they have kidnapped him. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense how people are not noticing, how there's not more of an investigation. So this particular, my version would solve that issue. It's really just them in the apartment, maybe for a whole week. So you can have tension build up better in ways that it doesn't really do that. You can have them, bicker a little bit. Basically the classic, oh, we got stuck in a space together and we hated each other and then we come around. That's sort of a standard formula, and I think you could do that really well if they're all just in this apartment for a few days.
So, two questions off of that. One, other than, I know in the first one you mentioned like J-Lo was just like a dynamic force. So, in the movie itself, was there anything else positive that you felt like J-Lo did in the movie? And then a second question, do you think that they could have done a good job with that? Because, boy, the writing was so bad and their chemistry was so bad. Do you think realistically like that could have happened even if the writing was good? Because I got some serious doubts that
Yeah.
like still could have been a good thing. So what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean that's fair. I did think that J-Lo was pretty good a lot of the time. I think she had a couple monologues that were pretty good, and we did discuss making. I think part of why the chemistry was lacking is something we talked about in the first half of just these characters keep giving these monologues, and there's not a lot of actual, like, back and forth of them talking. And so I think you could build the chemistry a little better. Yeah, I think that problem. Because I think that they would have chemistry together. Because I can't think off the top of my head, but I thought they had done other stuff together that went over a little better. So I think if you have them actually having dialogue instead of kind of giving each other monologues, it would improve the way that their chemistry works. I mean, the question is, yeah, like could the people who wrote this actually have written a better movie? It's kind of hard to tell on that. I think if they kind of did some of the suggestions we talked about of, making the characters a little bit deeper instead of kind of very two-dimensional, if they just put more actual details instead of having kind of a surface-level plot, I think that they could have written it a little better if they implemented a couple of the things we.
I think you're being pretty generous about that, but we'll never know. That's the Twilight Zone. We'll never know if that happened or not. So maybe in another universe, in another world, they made a better movie with that. So just won't know.
I don't think they bring it up to being like a good movie. I don't think they bring it all the way up to being like a good movie, but I think they bring it up at least where you're like, that was fine. That wasn't actively bad the way that it ended up in this. I think they can bring it up 2 notches, maybe.
Yeah, I could agree to that. I think that'd be. No, I could see that. Going off of that, then, what's kind of your score with the movie? What's your Tanner score for the movie then?
Yeah, so we talked about last time one of the kind of ways that I think about movies and how I kind of rate them is, was it good and did I like it? Sort of those 2 parallel things. And this one really is going to get I don't think it's good and I didn't like it. So pretty much a fail across the board. I wanted the movie to be over. There weren't really any moments where I was like, oh man, this is good. Oh, that was actually really funny. It was mostly like, well, this is just continuing to keep going. It's not over yet. So yeah, I think it's pretty much just a bad big fail.
So I mean, 1 through 10, what number are you going to give it? Your score? Give it a score then.
I think one of the things we did talk about, I think IMDb has it at like a 2.5 or something. I always feel like even for a bad, boring movie, that's kind of low because I don't know. I feel like a 2, it has to be like really bad. So I probably would give it like a 4.
Yeah, I agree with you. Something that got in the that we talked about last time that got uncut is we kind of talked about the scoring that IMDb has, and 9 is like critically acclaimed, best movie ever. 8's like won some Academy Awards, I'm sure. 7 was maybe nominated, but like overall general public and critics liked it. 6 was like decent movie. If you like the actor or the plot, you're gonna like the movie, I'm sure, and it'll be pretty good. And then a 5 is like the movie like overall wasn't that good, but if you really love one of the things, like the movie's probably be okay, but like really like an okay movie. And then like anything below 5 is just kind of bad. And I kind of feel like 3s and 4s are like bad movies, but I think to be in the 2.5 range like it got, like boy, the production value's got to be like way low, or like something's got to be really off about it. And most of the times those movies end up being like enjoyable, like a Rubber or Thanksgiving, something like that. That didn't get redeemed because you end up enjoying it. So I think 2.5 is really low, and I would agree. I'd put it at a 4. Still a bad movie, but not bad. They did have big actors again. Not that really saved the movie, but wouldn't give it less than a 4. I feel like because it wasn't like a bad movie that they filmed with like a camcorder or anything. That production value was really bad.
Yeah, it definitely falls in the category, I think in a lot of ways, a score of like 3 to 5 is almost kind of like the worst types of movies because they're not so bad they're good. They're just fine. You watch it and you're like, well, that I could have spent my time better, but I guess I'm not like. Yeah, I could have spent my time better. I didn't watch and go, oh, that ended up being fun. It's very like, that, there was nothing that like pissed me off. Oh, I can't believe they did that. But you're just like, that was another choice they made. Oh, that was another time they tried to make a joke that fell flat. All right, guys, let's just get through this together. We're almost there. It's that kind of movie for sure. So it definitely gets a don't watch it from us.
Oh yeah, definitely not worth your time. And something Tanner had just said that it made me think about what did the crew think when they were filming it, because it's like the director and other people had to be like, oh boy, that was bad. All right, next scene. It's like, were people telling them it was bad? Did they know it was bad? I wonder what the crew what was going on with the crew, and what did they feel as they were making it? Because like they had to know, like, this was another really bad scene, guys. Like, I don't want to do any more of these.
I don't know. I almost do think that I think that while they were putting it together, they probably felt like it was going fine enough, I think. Because if you were to kind of like actually chop it up and you're just kind of every couple days in like one individual scene, I don't think any individual scene seems so bad where you're like, man, this movie's gonna suck. But I think then when you put just a whole series of very mediocre scenes together and you edit it in the way they did at different times and you put the very bland music over it, that's when I think you see like, oh man, this really didn't turn out well. I think in some type of way, because we did talk about the music for a while, I think if you could have found a way to change one or two small aspects, even if they kept the story and they kept the type of, each way they acted, all the stuff, but you did get a better soundtrack, or you did edit it in some type of way that makes it move along faster, I think it's possible that they could have kept kind of all the footage and made it, again, just like a little bit better enough. But I think each single element being like, that's just okay, and that part was just okay, and that part was just okay, you end up with the whole movie where it's like, well, no individual part was terrible, but the sum was, just bland, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just having all those separate scenes that were like, that was okay. And then adding up all those okays to be kind of like a dumpster fire, basically. So
right, because it does just multiply.
Yes, it does. All right, so here's some fun facts we can go over with the movie. The UK dropped the movie after 1 week of showing, which is that's pretty bad. That's pretty pathetic. I feel like a normal, like I don't know what UK's normal runs are, but I think for us in like the US, like a 6 week run is like pretty average. Like that's what you can expect, I think, from a movie. I could be wrong, but I think that's roughly the time range. Maybe 4 if it's like, yeah, this was like not very good. So having less than a 4 is like, that's bad.
I think so. That seems right.
This was the director's last movie that he had done. He retired after this movie, and it sounds like from the negative feedback that he got. So that was kind of a bummer that he didn't do anything after this.
Because we did talk about, he had a pretty good run. He had, right before these, Scent of a Woman, 1992, which has an 8.0. People really seem to like that. I liked it. Midnight Run, which I haven't seen, and Beverly Hills Cop, which again is like a cult classic. So it would seem like this guy was a good director and was going to, be making more movies. So that was something I think that we did discuss in some of the audio that we lost, but it's just, it is surprising, like, what happened on this one, that, we have a guy that it seems like can make pretty good movies. How did he miss so badly?
Yeah, I think that just goes back to, so the next fun fact that I have is, like, it was supposed to be a mob story that was a little bit darker, a little more crime themed. And
right.
The studio, like we talked about, the studio saw J-Lo and BA, and they were like, "Oh boy, let's let's capitalize on this relationship and really push for that. So they wanted more of the rom-com, which just kind of fell flat. So it wasn't either one. You know, they didn't really pick a genre of the movie. And I'm wondering if maybe from that, you know, he was like, well, I don't want to deal with that anymore. I don't want a studio then to step in and have a say when I have, you know, an idea that's going on. So maybe that's what made him walk away.
And I think that's something
we'll never know.
Yeah, no, not know for sure, but that's something we've talked about that I know, and I've talked with other people about. There are a lot of times where a director has this vision for the thing, the studio makes these tweaks, and that's how you end up with these just very messy movies. Because, you know, they hire this director, and then they kind of step in too much, and, you know, the people that kind of run companies but don't actually make movies start putting in these different inputs of what movie they think they want to get out of it. And I remember, like, the Fantastic Four movie from maybe 6 or 8 years ago, that was one of the things I remember hearing a lot, is that there was these, you know, I think it changed studios a couple times, and it changed directors a couple times, and some of it was because of that, you know, studios interfering in types of way. And it's gonna be hard when you have too many people trying to make decisions about the actual final cut of a movie. It's going to be hard to kind of get like a cohesive movie that fits together well. I think we see that here.
Yeah, we definitely do. Did you see that Fantastic Four movie? I never saw it.
I think I did. I think I thought it was fine. It's certainly not good. I mean, it's a mess, but
yeah, the reviews were so bad I never really wanted to watch it. Another fun fact. So Halle Berry was supposed to be the woman in the movie, but she had a commitment to X2 coming out. Probably a good choice that she made with
probably better.
Just to stick with X2 that was going to X-Men. There was always a rumor that was like never really confirmed that there was 40 plus minutes of deleted scenes that were more of the mob story, and they were more of the darker movie and scenes with Christopher Walken in it supposedly, but no, no one ever saw those because they were deleted, they were cut. So that'd have been interesting to see, even if just the deleted scenes on like a DVD or something like that they had out. Maybe could have redeemed it, but probably not overall.
Yeah, because they have Christopher Walken and they have Al Pacino, but they each get 5 minutes maybe of screen time, which I think, that can be interesting in some movies where it really is kind of a cameo. It is like the person pops in and, kind of gives their little flair to the moment. But it is odd, like, those are two, like, iconic, like, powerhouse guys. Why not, like, use them a little bit more? Because it almost, their two particular scenes almost didn't make that much sense with them only showing up one time, and their kind of parts of the story would have made more sense if they were, came in a couple more times and instead of just one scene. It made it feel I don't know, kind of like jarring, or like it kind of bounces around with those two.
Yeah, for sure. I can't remember if this was in the first one or not, but kind of the budget for the movie was about $55 million, and it ballooned up another $20 million with all the rewrites, so it ended up being $75 million. So it went way over budget, and they only made like $7.5 million off of it, so they lost a bunch of money on it from all the rewrites. And just last kind of quick thing, there was like about half the movies in his Gigli's apartment the whole time, and I know you had mentioned like, oh, that would have been a cooler part of the movie if they were there the whole time, because they are trying to hide, which would make more sense that they weren't be going out in public or anything. But overall, a lot of those apartment scenes were not really that good overall. But I think could have been good. I mean, I think that could have been a good movie, as them staying there the whole time, and that would have made more sense too.
Yeah. And when we did, we talked already a week or two ago and we lost some of that audio, but one of the things we talked about was, for me personally, I was pretty surprised by that high of a budget because of what we ended up getting. But I think, if you mention, 40 more minutes that they may have cut, that's, maybe that's weeks, maybe that's, X amount of $1 million. So I still think that's a relatively high budget to me for this type of movie that it doesn't really have action scenes. It doesn't have any type of CGI or anything like that. When I think of like, I can think of movies that have much, much smaller budgets that end up doing, better things and that look cooler and stuff. But I think one of the things you did mention last time too was half the budget, I think, was, the two big stars. So then whatever they have left, it did not go far enough, obviously, to kind of produce something better.
Yeah, with the original budget, it was almost half. I think it was 12 million for J Lo, and 12.5 for Affleck, because that's just what happens. Guys get paid more, for whatever reason. So it was like almost half of the budget was going to them originally. And great point. There's no extra stuff going on with it. There's no explosions. There's such simple scenes that they do. Lewis getting shot at the end might have been the most money they spent on something, because there just wasn't anything crazy they did. They drove around in a car in the city. That's like the second most craziest thing they did. So
yeah, there's really not even action in it. So I could definitely see it being that type of thing where, it starts out with a certain budget, and maybe they planned one or two bigger things that were going to happen, and, stuff that shouldn't have cost the amount that it ended up costing. Like, there could have been, with a budget as high as that, I think relatively high, I could very much see it being just bad planning, and, things maybe it took longer to shoot than it should have, or little things like that. I could see the money going away faster than they planned on it, and then they get to a certain point, they're like, oh man, like, if we're even gonna finish this movie, we need another 25 million or whatever. And even, I think you said this, but the US and Canada gross was 6 million. The worldwide gross was 7 million. That's insane. Usually, the US is a big spot, but the rest of the whole world, that either means, like, basically no one else even showed it, or it just flopped every single place they tried to show it, which is pretty wild.
Flopping, I think, for sure is probably what happened pretty quickly, I think, overall. And I'm wondering, you talked about, budget stuff. I'm wondering if, originally they were paying them less, but I wonder if, as it got closer to shooting, they end up having to pay Ben Affleck and J-Lo more. Potentially, I'm just speculating, but I wonder if they ended up having to shell out some more money for them overall.
Yeah, I could.
Well, any other final thoughts about the movie as we're kind of wrapping up?
I think that's pretty much what I've got to say about it. It, for one, I'm technically speaking glad, in quotes, that we watched it, because it is one of those I've heard about for a long time, and I do like these actors and everything, so I'm glad that now I could be like, well, I watched it and I don't ever have to watch it again. That's pretty much what I can say to wrap up. It was not enjoyable, and I do not want to watch it again.
That was a positive spin that you could at least say you're glad to watch it, because, it was bad. It was not a good movie at all. Wouldn't recommend it. I know you were entertained by Showgirls, and that it was an exciting movie, but even, overall, to me, that was a bad movie, and neither movie, like, super enjoyed overall, and you had a great line. I forget exactly how you worded it, but you were like, "Oh yeah, I wasn't stopping this movie because boy, I just wanted it to end." With Showgirls, we had to stop it a bunch because there was so much crazy stuff going on.
Yes,
but yeah, not a good movie at all overall. So
yeah. So I think the plan that we have talked about a little bit is for the next round, whenever we kind of record the next time, we're going to try to watch something that is supposed to be good. We're going to take a shift for a couple episodes and check out something that we're actually interested in and we've heard good things about. Something probably a little bit older and maybe considered a little bit more of a classic.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. Hopefully it's a movie that I enjoy and won't be a dumpster fire like these last two. So looking forward to watching something that's supposed to be really good, and it'd be a good little twist to critique and go through a movie that is supposed to be good, especially an older one. I mean, total shift. If it's an older movie and it's supposed to be good, then a newer-ish movie, at least our lifetime, I guess, but was bad overall.
Yeah, we'll probably get tired of recording this real fast if we keep picking movies that are not enjoyable. Yeah, we probably need to make sure that we actually watch stuff we like.
Well, you're 1 for 2 though. You're 50%. I mean, you enjoyed the first.
I guess
one,
for me,
yeah, you're good.
You're over 2 though, so that's not
I'm just behind a little bit. I know, yeah.
Yeah, that ends up being 1 out of 4 experiences. So
That's true. That's a good point. That's valid. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, next time we'll have a full clip together and not 2 parts, and we won't have some internet issues anymore. And looking forward to the pod next time.
Yeah, dude, it's been fun, and looking forward to it.
Yeah,
roll credits.
Maybe in the future. In the future we'll have some special guests, and merch stores is live with pieces of Tanner's beard. They're going hot, so make sure you guys get on there and get those because they're going fast. So.
Not everybody can have this glorious mane of locks, Share a little piece of it.
Yeah.
And
all right, we'll see you next time.